Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Ceres in Pisces in a natal chart. Now, Ceres in astrology can be connected with how one may nurture and care for others, but it could also be associated with how we may desire to be nurtured and cared for. Now, given that this is Pisces energy, one may nurture and care with a lot of compassion, a lot of self-sacrificing energy, a lot of idealism, as well, maybe by helping others attain their dreams, even in being ideal, encouraging others to be idealistic in terms of what they can attain in their life, and their goals, their aspirations. It could be also nurturing with a lot of sensitivity as well, and showing a lot of altruism in the process, encouraging others to see the whole picture in themselves. And it could also be in some isolated cases, it might be through the metaphysical, which includes astrology, or through some kind of psychic receptivity, if that is something that you do believe in. So those are some things to look at as far as how this could manifest, and as far as the nurturing element of this goes. Now, also, too, Ceres in astrology can be connected with dissipated self-worth or depleted self-esteem. Now, since we're talking about Pisces energy, one maybe has depleted self-worth in some cases, maybe through being too passive or weak-willed, or it could be through lack of an imagination. Maybe it's through some deceptive situation, or it could be through just being gullible, being duped by a con artist, or just being basically deceived and beguiled in general. Some cases, in isolated cases, it may be attributed to some incurable debilitation, and especially if this were to fall in the sixth house or the first house, and it's making, say, an adverse aspect, say if it's in the sixth and it's in conjunct the ascendant, but these could be very isolated cases, of course. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with eating issues and disorders that are associated with food and eating. Now, given that this is Pisces energy, they may be somewhat chaotic. In some cases, they may be very nebulous and unclear and confounding, and not always maybe understanding why this could actually be happening. It could also be if somebody's like involved in modeling or acting, or something where the physique and the appearance is of utmost importance. It could be due to wanting that ideal look, that you really so anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with raising children. Now, if you are a parent and you're going to be raising children, this may be done by encouraging them to be very altruistic, and really and also getting them to see the whole picture in others, not necessarily be judgmental or cynical or critical, but being able to see the whole picture and try to overlook certain transgressions in other people, but also raising them perhaps to be very compassionate as well, and understanding when they can, as far as sacrificing at times for others, and trying to see the best in others as well, not to be completely unrealistic and overlook all transgressions or defaults of others necessarily, but being able to see the good qualities in others as well, and also to encourage and perhaps to help those less fortunate than yourself, such as the impoverished, the oppressed, the homeless, and the hungry. So anyway, now, another thing that's connected with Ceres in astrology, it can be associated with being coerced and forcibly taken against one's will, which, of course, in other words, it could be kidnapping or abduction. Now, kidnapping and abductions, of course, are very isolated. They're very rare. They don't happen very often. But in isolated cases that you could be involved in one, it might be done, through duplicity or deception, or maybe the person is abducted by someone less fortunate than yourself, somebody that's in, a state of misery, or in some oppressed situation, or impoverished or homeless. person. It could be it could be something that happens that's very unclear and nebulous, that you don't really even understand why something may like this may have happened. Or it could be somebody that may have been involved with alcohol or drug use so strongly. So anyway. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with family connections. This could be, given that this is Pisces energy, this could be something where maybe your connection's a little bit vague, or there's something nebulous or ambiguous. Maybe there's something unclear or nebulous regarding your ancestry. I mean, especially say if this falls in the fourth house in one's natal chart. It could be something too where in some cases where maybe, I mean, Pisces energy can be about dissipation and dissolving. It could be where the family connection might be somewhat dissipated or dissolved, but at the same time, on a positive end, it could also be associated with a lot of forgiving and forgiveness energy is what I call it, and with a lot of altruism as well. And being able to see, and it could be where in some cases you might be overlooking, some of the negatives and some of the in family members as well, because Pisces energy, of course, could be very idealistic and it can be naive. So just make sure that you know the difference between being idealistic and unrealistic as well. So anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with dejection, sorrow, and disappointment. Now, given that this is Pisces energy, this may be something where maybe there's some disappointment, sorrow connected with being overly passive or weak-willed, or maybe it was some connection with drugs or alcohol where one may have lost their inhibitions. It could be something where maybe there's some sorrow and disappointment connected with being overly ambivalent, or maybe isolating oneself from society. It can be a situation where somebody may have been duped or may have been conned, because Pisces energy, of course, could be very gullible. It can be energy where one could be deceived and beguiled very easily. And depending on what house it falls in, of course, that could be that area where one may have been deceived. If it falls in the fourth house, for example, it could be from perhaps a family member, someone you're close to home with. In the first, it might have been a grandmother or someone that was prominent in your early childhood. And it could also be about being maybe sorrow connected with being impressionable and allowing extraneous things to impact the person one way or another. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with protective energy. Now, this could manifest perhaps in being protected very strongly of those less fortunate than yourself, such as the impoverished, the oppressed, the homeless, or the hungry. It could be where you're very, or maybe even excessively protective over issues connected with fraud or identity theft or some kind of identity impersonation. It might even be in matters with drugs or alcohol. Perhaps it could be, and you might be one of those people too in some isolated cases where you're being very protective of, evil spirits, malefic spirits, if you do believe in that, such as the people that use like that incense to supposedly try to eradicate like the evil energy, nefarious energy, and even things with the paranormal as well, which could be tied into that, I guess. So now, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with clothing. Now, given that this is Pisces energy, this could be a person that might either, be somewhat disheveled, or in some cases may simply be into some kind of mystical clothing, or something connected with the metaphysical, which can include astrology. It could be a person that gives their clothes off the back, so to speak, for those that are less fortunate, because Pisces, of course, could be very self-sacrificing energy. It could be a person that gives basically might give a lot of their clothes away to people that are in less fortunate situations, again, such as the impoverished, the homeless, the oppressed, or the hungry. And there might even be a mysterious quality to the clothing that one may wear. And I'm being flippant when I say this. It could be something like fishnets, but I'm only joking. as far as that goes. But anyway, and also too, Pisces can often like clothes that are loose. So, I mean, you might have some contraindicators in your chart. If you have like a Virgo ascendant, you might actually be very meticulous dresser and somebody that's actually very frugal in terms of your buying, and maybe not, you might be more not as inclined to maybe unrealistic spending on clothing is in contrast to this placement. So anyway, well, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with what one may obliterate in order to restore. Now, given that this is Pisces energy, well, in some cases it might simply be the eradication of dreams and what someone may have fantasized about in order to restore some hope in a certain sector in one's life, depending on what house this falls in. Say if this falls in the fifth house, it could be restoring maybe some hope and maybe the expression of altruism and self-sacrificing energy with children, with lovers, maybe people that you might have enjoyed some hobby or creative endeavor with. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.